Hi, I'm Dan with Family White TV, and today I'm taking you through a redesign of a Sonotube version of the Salerno Subwoofer that I had built for my home theater. I originally wanted to build it as a Sonotube, and now I've kind of reimagined it and kind of updated my drawings. I'm going to take you through the design and everything for that. So if I were to build it today, it would be based on this. This is the stereo integrity. I mean, you can read it, the HST18 Mark II 18-inch subwoofer. This is a long throw subwoofer driver, and it has a rating of 38 millimeters of X-Max, and it says 4 inches of peak cone travel. Now really this should be peak to peak cone travel, because in the features it says 100 millimeters of cone travel possible. 100 millimeters is 4 inches of travel, so that's really 4 inches peak to peak travel. But we're going to remember that, so basically 50 millimeters of excursion one way is what we're going to be looking at. And so here's the Thiel small parameters, and I have put those into WinISD, and I have modeled out a subwoofer. The specs I got the driver here, and here's the parameters I got inputted into WinISD. But what I'm shooting for is an 11 Hertz tuning point. So for the box, I went with a 650 liter volume, tuned to 11 Hertz. The vent, I'm going to be using an 8-inch Sonotube for the internal vent, which gives me a vent length of 42.7 inches. Not using any filters, and for now I am level matching this to my 2 other subs, because if I were to build these 2 initially, I would integrate them into my current system so that I could have 4 subwoofers going. Now down the road it's inevitable I'm probably going to move, and what I'd probably do, since the Sonotubes are going to be a lot lighter, I would probably go ahead and sell the MDF versions and move with the Sonotubes so I could save a little bit of weight on moving. But this is with just 500 watts of input, where it matches my current subwoofers. Now these are, it says on there capable of 2000 watts RMS, but that's like pushing it to its max limit. But I think 1600 watts seems pretty realistic, and with 1600 watts I'd be getting 116 decibels at 11 Hertz here. And so since I would have 2 subwoofers, you generally as a rule can add 6 dB of output if you have 2 subwoofers. Now there's some cases like certain parts of the frequency that might not be true, but in general 6 dB of added output, which would get us up to 122 dB with both of them working together. But for now we'll stick with the 500 watts because that's going to integrate nicely into our current system here. So since I'll have 2 of these, that would get me 117 dB, and then adding the 2 others that I have, 6 more dB. So 123 decibels is what I can expect from 1 meter away. And then if I actually run the numbers through a calculator, I find that with 123 decibels as measured from 1 meter away, which is what this program is doing, then at 9 feet away, which is where my listening position would be, I can be getting 115 dB, which is reference level. That's 0 on the volume dial on your AVR, which is actually quite a loud level. So that is a really good level to be at. Now we'll look at some other signal properties here. For our cone excursion, at 500 watts, we are well under the limit. And even for the XMEC, which is 50 millimeters of travel, now it does show it going a little bit above, but really amplifiers and everything, they're going to be rolling off by this point. So I don't expect to see anything like this. And even with my current subwoofer, the models show me that I will be going past that limit, but in practice I haven't heard anything bottom out or anything like that, so not too worried about this. Now if we were to go to the 1600 watts, even then our X-Max is good all the way down to 10 Hertz, but at that point if I was putting 1600 watts through it, I probably would want to put some sort of a high pass filter in there so that I don't risk bottoming it out. But I'd have to get to know the woofer and what it can do and what it can't do. Now my port velocity is just fine, nice low 24 meters per second, and that's going at 500 watts. That's pushing, I think it was 111 decibels, and since I'm using an 8-inch port, my port velocity is nice and low. I shouldn't experience any chuffing at that. If I did put 1600 watts through it, then the port velocity is going to be a little bit higher than ideal, but at that level of output, there's probably going to be so much noise in the room shaking and stuff like that that the chuffing is probably not really going to be all that noticeable. If it does happen at all, I've done some other things to try to mitigate the potential chuffing. And really, I say I'm limiting it to 500 watts, but really I'll probably play around with it, give it some more power and see, even though they will be playing louder than the other ones, see how it works in the system, since it'll give me a little bit of extra oomph, about 3 dB more of oomph if I do give it more power. So it's something I can experiment with if and when I do get to build these. Now, in order to build these, you need a product called Sonotube, and Sonotube is concrete forms. Basically, what Sonotube is normally used for is to build. You basically set it up, you put rebar in it, and you pour concrete into it, and it's for making concrete columns. But we can also use it for subwoofers. And so we see with our sizes here that they offer in the commercial concrete form is the 30-inch, 28, 26, 24, and there's all these inches. And there's all these sizes, and we can also use the 6 or 8-inch size depending on your tuning, but I would be using the 8-inch diameter along with the 28-inch diameter to build the Sonotube. The 8-inch one, of course, would be the port, and the 28-inch one would be the actual body of the Sonosub itself. Now, Sonotube does also make a couple other types of Sonotube. One is the finish free, but I would recommend against this because it has this strip here, and what the strip is for is after your concrete's hardened, you can use it to easily remove it. Well, I don't know if this is going to cause some sort of a weak spot, so we don't want the strip, and plus it probably costs a little bit more to have that strip. So instead of that, I would go with the commercial. They also do make the Sonotube round, which looks like it would be a little bit cheaper, but I have to see it firsthand because I'm not sure if this is thinner than the Sonotube commercial. So I'd probably stick with Sonotube commercial, possibly get Sonotube round. I'd have to compare prices, availability, and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is my first initial design for the subwoofer, and this I designed several years ago when I was living in Germany. The reason I didn't build it like this at the time is because I didn't speak good German and I didn't think I'd be able to communicate to a German contractor what exactly I was trying to accomplish with the concrete form tube, and so I went with the MDF version. But now that I'm back in the States, I should be able to communicate easily enough what it is I want, and I should be able to get it a little bit more readily available. So the two main features of this design here is I do have I have screening material on the bottom and on the top. Now this is not necessary to have, but I do have kids and I don't want to run the risk of a toy or a toy truck or something getting caught under here, damaging the driver, and I don't want to run the risk of a ball or something getting into the top of this and getting inside there and I have to take it apart, or it could damage the driver that way also. And so these grills on here are something I did want to have. Now, in making this video, I explored doing some other sizes, and so what I came up with is these other designs here. Now, the reason these ones get taller than this one is because since it's a smaller diameter, well, I need to maintain the same internal volume in order to get the tuning I want, so to maintain the same volume, they need to go taller. Now, the main benefits of these other three is that they use significantly less wood than this one. For all the wood I would need to build this one, I would need 5 4x8 sheets of material, whether it's plywood or MDF, whichever I decide to go with. With these over here, I only need 3 sheets, and I could actually get away with just 2 sheets with this one. But with these ones, there are major reasons why I can't build these. The main reason is because they are too tall. Now, the standard ceiling height in a lot of houses is 8 feet tall. So this one is under 8 feet, but I can't put the top hat on there because it would make it too tall. And also, this one is just barely tall enough for some reasons I'm going to be getting into a little bit later. But basically, when you tip this up on end, it actually is a little bit taller than 7 feet 6 inches. It's actually going to be 2 inches shy of 8 feet. So depending on how tightly the tolerances were in the house, if the ceiling actually is 80 inches, it might be 79 inches, or the tolerances in building this could run into a situation where when you try to tip it up, you might scrape the ceiling. Now, another reason not to go with these taller sizes is because Sonotube comes in 12 or 20 foot sections. With this one, since it's only 5 feet 10.5 inches, I can get 2 of these out of just one roll of Sonotube, one 12-foot roll of Sonotube. I can just cut it in half, and I have 2 of these. If I was to go, or someone else was to go with one of these designs that has 6 feet 10 inches, well, then you either need to buy the 20-foot Sonotube, well, pretty much you'd buy the 20-foot Sonotube section, or you just have to buy 2 of the 12-foot sections and have a whole bunch of waste. And looking at the price of Sonotube from one site here, their 30-inch product costs $193 per roll. So if you have to... And so if you go just a little bit over and have to purchase a second one, well, then that's almost $200 extra that you have to pay, plus the shipping or however you plan to get it back home. So I'll show you some of the internal workings of this real quick. So inside we have, of course, the base plate. Then we have 2 pieces of wood where the driver will actually mount. And I actually also did a while ago model the Neutrik speak-on connector that I would be using. But then we have the driver. There is an internal brace here. It doesn't really require bracing, but the reason that I have a brace on this one is because when I do move, I want to be able to make sure that this can maybe take a few hard knocks without this port breaking loose. So I have this one brace down here just to make sure that this stays nice and stiff, doesn't move anywhere, especially since it's going to have this flange on it. Now, speaking of the flange here, I do have a flared flange on the end of the port on both the bottom and on the top. So what that flange does for me is it helps reduce the chance that chuffing is going to happen. It reduces the turbulence of the air so that I can have a little bit more air velocity before I have to start worrying about chuffing happening. And the other main difference that you'll notice is that this top hat here, actually, well, I guess it looks more like a top hat, but it's smaller. And there's reason for that based on the wood product I'd be using. So what we're going to have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big circles, and then one smaller circle is going to be cut out. Plus, I'm going to need a few more circles cut out so that I can do these flared end ports here. Now, one of the main reasons I went with the other slightly smaller design is because of the wood. This is the wood that would be required to do the 30-inch design, and as you can see, I need 5 4x8 sheets of material, whether it's plywood or MDF. What I discovered is that if I reduce the diameter a little, even just by 2 inches, I was able to fit on a 4th cutout here. And so this is a more detailed cut sheet that I did of the wood. And you'll notice that there is gaps here. The reason for the gaps being here is because when I route this out with a circle jig and a router, it's going to be about the bit is about 3/4 inches in diameter. So I have to account for that and leave the space for that so that I actually have enough wood once I get these cut out. And so these are the cut sheets I came up with, where we have the base plates, the plates the speakers is going to mount to, and the top plates, and then we have the internal bracing, and then smaller circles that are going to be used to basically round out the flanges for the ends of the port. And you can see here that I was able to get everything I need on just 3 sheets of material as opposed to needing 5 sheets of material. So there is a bit of a cost benefit there in doing that. Now with the taller ones, I could get it down to 2 sheets of material possibly, but because it's too tall, that's not going to work for me. Maybe if you live in a house that has greater than 8-foot ceilings, you might be able to go with something like that if you did want to do this. But it looks like 28 inches is going to be the optimal diameter for the tuning I'm looking for and for the height that I'm looking for. And so here's what they would look like inside the theater. And these look like they're a pretty good height. They're going to fit and everything like that. And it'll look really nice behind. Well, I guess it won't look really nice because I have a false wall here, but they would look really nice if I did have them outside, because what I plan to do is I also plan to put a kind of like a black indoor-outdoor carpet around them so that they look a little bit better than just the exposed bare sonotube. Now, in relation to height, you have to remember that one thing you have to do is stand this thing up. And what's going to happen is this thing's going to be a little bit taller when it's just almost all the way up. When it's about this far diagonal, it's going to be a little bit taller than it is when it's just sitting on its base. So you need to take that into account when designing something like this. Otherwise, you might scrape your ceiling, or even worse yet, the ceiling's so low that not only are you going to scrape your ceiling, but you're not even going to be able to get it upright after you've already scraped your ceiling. And you're going to be stuck trying to figure out, all right, how the heck do I stand this thing up on end because I made it too tall? So you want to keep that in mind if you do design a Sono sub like this, to make sure that it is going to be able to fit not only after it's placed, but also when you're trying to stand it up. Make sure it's not going to scrape against the bottom of the ceiling. So there it is. There's my design for the Sono sub with an 11 Hz tuning point using an 18-inch driver. Now, this is a project I'd like to do, but the next major thing I plan to do at the home theater is buy a new projector. What I plan to get is the JVC X790, or whichever is the equivalent by the time I'm ready to buy. And then after that, I'll look at either getting Atmos speakers or new subwoofers. Really, my funding for that right now is just, we do have a budget in our family, and we don't buy stuff, or we try very hard not to buy stuff on credit, so I'm not buying any of this on credit. So I'm just kind of saving up extra money I have, and a large source of that extra money is actually coming from this YouTube channel. So if you do want to see like build videos, well, I mean, of course I do a review of the JVC projector. I do build videos of these subwoofers most certainly, and I'd also do build videos of putting in Atmos and stuff like that. But if you're enjoying the content I see here, then please go ahead and like and subscribe and share the video around. Let more people know about what's going on here. And if this channel stays popular and active and keeps getting views, and I'll be able to keep doing stuff like this for you. But for the time being, in the coming weeks, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus from YouTube because I've been away from home for a year now because of work. I'm finally getting back home, so it's going to be some family time. There's going to be less focus on videos, but I do still plan to keep putting videos out, hopefully at the same quality I've been able to do while I've had all this time on my hand. But there it is. There's the design for the Salerno Subwoofer with the Sonotube format. So if you haven't seen some of the other videos, please go ahead and check them out here. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Hope it was informative, and thank you for watching.